What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another car review. This is of course the 1970 Dodge Challenger RT. Huge thanks to Ron and Sport Dimensions for providing me with this very sweet Challenger here to review for you guys today. So about the 1970 Challenger, well, this was the first year for the Challenger. It was, Mopar's new pony car, and their definition and everyone's definition here of pony car, at least in the late 60s, was a long hood and a short rear deck. So as opposed to the other muscle cars of the 60s, where you had a longer rear deck, you have a much shorter rear deck here, and so that's kind of what classified it as a pony car. And compared to the other muscle cars of its day, it was definitely on the smaller side. I mean, it's still a big car, but it was right in line with all the other pony cars that was competing against, of course, the Camaro and the Mustang. So anyway, for this RT one, so that was a package you got, and usually you'd get a standard 383 V8, but this one has been upgraded to the 446 pack. That was what this one was ordered with from the factory. And the RT package is a really cool package too. So it wasn't just faster, it also gave you a little bit better handling, and of course the slightly cooler looks as well. And so up front there, it's unmistakable Challenger, and it's so cool to see how much of this is transferred over to the new ones too. They have been so faithful with the new Challenger recreations, and I really love that. I mean, you can see all the clear, connections with the headlights, of course, the grille, which is very cool. A little factoid about that grille there is that they were trying to come up with grille designs, and supposedly, in the offices, where there's fluorescent lights, you have those grates over those lights, and they looked up and saw that, and they incorporated that into a grille there, and that's kind of how that originated there. But I mean, having the hood pins is so cool, and again, this hood is like almost identical to the hoods you get on some of the newer Challengers as well. So I mean, they've been so faithful with these reproductions with the new ones. It's awesome. But anyway, coming down, these rally wheels is part of this RT package, and lots of rally inspired things, as I'll move on to the interior and talk about that in a second. But out back there, you still had that very cool spoiler there called a Go Wing spoiler, and then you also had a little stripe there, and then those wide tail lamps that are now infamous and were seen on the earlier new gen Challengers until they went to the styling from the 71s. But yeah, so overall it's just a really nice compact look compared to the other stuff of the day. I love the lines you have going down the sides there, the way it kind of sweeps up and everything. It's just overall a really good look, and especially here in white, it's very clean and actually kind of subtle. Right, for the interior of the 70 Challenger here, well, it's a very cool place to be, but definitely a little tighter than some of the larger muscle cars of the time. So anyway, first thing, sitting down in these seats, you have these high back bucket seats, and this is kind of a new thing because previously you just had the shorter either bench or shorter buckets, and these are definitely have more support up high here, but still don't really have any bolstering to speak of. So still could definitely use more support, but nothing back then really had deep bucket seats. So these still feel pretty good, and of course just the nice soft vinyl that is very cushy and springy here, and so a very comfortable seat though, although this vinyl doesn't breathe very well when you're in the hot sun. Next though is the steering wheel here, and so this is one of two steering wheels you're able to get here in the Challengers. I really like the wood grain rim you have on it, but one very interesting thing is there is no horn in the middle, so it has this little rubber lining here, and this is actually called a rim blow steering wheel. I did not make that up. That is what they call it. And so you can't even do a flat press. It doesn't work very well. So you have to dig in and then use it. Not very good for emergency situations. So I think they said that was offered for a year or two, and then that's it. Not a great idea, but a very funny name. So anyway, just a really great wheel. I love the metal spokes you have here on it, and looks good. Next are the gauges here. So this is the Rally Pack style gauges, which were an option on lower grades, but I believe the RT did get them, and it's a really cool look here. So again, more of the wood grain, which is cool, but just very clear gauges there. I love how they have the tack front and center, since previously it was usually off, either to the right or to the left in other vehicles. So having it front and center is great there, and it's fun that it goes up to 8, even though the red line is way before there. And then just your other basic gauges, and also a nice large clock. So that's very cool. Again, part of the Rally inspiration. And then everything else is very simplified and very driver centric. So whereas other normal larger family vehicles of the time, you had the radio pretty out in the open open here. This one, it's really, kind of hidden away so only the driver can use it. And you really got to kind of reach over kind of into the steering wheel here even to get to the radio controls there. And just a normal AM radio here. I believe you could get FM or 8 tracks and stuff, but this one is lightly optioned in the audio department. And then your heater controls there on the left, no air conditioning. So, and then, you could get a console, but that was an option. This one does not have it, so you just have the manual here with the pistol grip shifter as a Hurst shifter. And so very cool to have, and very, pretty close ratio shifter too. So even though it's only a 4-speed, it's nice and tight. So that's interesting. And also you have this very, the prominent dashboard that kind of comes out a lot more than it did on some of these standard, Dodge Coronets and stuff of 1970. So that's an interesting touch. And then you even have this little ashtray here beneath that with a cigarette lighter, and that's a must-have inclusion in this time period. And so yeah, but that's about it. So if you had the console, you'd have some kind of storage bin or something, but you don't have that here in this one. And so because of that, it's a pretty simple interior. Back seat is a little tighter than what you get in some of the larger, full-size coupes and stuff, but it is still usable for adults. So I'm 5'9", I'm sitting behind myself. I do have to kind of keep my legs apart there. I can't, keep them together, but I do fit back there, and I do have enough headroom. Not quite as much headroom as the larger, vehicles of this time, but still, it's adequate amount of headroom, I think. And you even have, of course, the ashtrays. They always had ashtrays for each passenger in these vehicles, no matter what. So you have those there on the sides for even the rear seat passengers. And another funny thing too, so this was the beginning of the shoulder belts, but they weren't great. So you had the normal lap belt, which is what most people used. And then you had this, which came down from the ceiling, and you pull that down, and not very easy to use, and so most people just leave that up there and use the lap belts. But an interesting thing, and interesting how they kind of stow away up there in the roof. All right, so start up and go for a drive. You have just the standard key here for the Challenger, of course. So go ahead and put it into neutral here. Starts right up. Alright, so setting off here in the 1970 Dodge Challenger. So the first thing you notice, everything's actually really low to you. So I mean, my shoulders seem to be above the dashboard, above the hood, all that kind of stuff. And it really makes for an interesting driving experience. Other things to note here are that, the steering, although the steering is loose, it feels pretty tight because this car has no power steering. That was an option you could get. This one does not have it. It is very heavy whenever especially because you have that heavy engine over those front wheels. It is hard to turn this wheel. Even at some higher speeds here, it is one of the harder to use non-power steering setups I've ever used. So, even doing 25 miles an hour, I really got to put a lot of muscle into steering this thing, which is interesting. Gives you a very direct feel, of course. Other things here, so we're just coasting, and it's a nice cruiser. I do feel the road and stuff a little more than I think I do in the larger vehicles, from this time period. And so that's kind of an interesting thing. It also sometimes does pop out of gear, so it literally just popped out a second there. That's just a quirky little thing, but we'll try out third here anyway. That is one thing though, is this shifter. It's more precise than some of the others from other similar Mopar years, but it is still, a little tricky. You got to use a lot of muscle. The pistol grip definitely does help with the muscle aspect of it, so you can kind of get a little more leverage on the shifter there. Other things to note here. So now this car does have disc brakes. That was something that was an optional upgrade that this one does have. And so that's nice, because otherwise I think the RTs came with sportier drums, but they were still drums. So nice to have the power brakes here and the disc brakes on this one, so that makes it at least easy for your feet. It's just your arms that are getting the work out here with the non-power steering. But now we're on a main road here, cruising at some higher speeds. And, the steering is definitely not the most confidence-inspiring, because it is fairly loose, and then you got a lot of resistance once it actually starts doing some steering, but it still is not precise. Some things that are very good though is that you have very sharp throttle response, very precise, and you have tons of torque here from this 440 6-pack V8 engine. You have plenty of power. It is definitely meaty, and so these tires, you have bias ply tires on here. These are like the original style tire, but they are reproductions, of course, so they are newer. But they grip fairly well. This vehicle is a good bit lighter than some of the other stuff, like the Coronets and stuff would be about 4,100 pounds or something, and this is about 3,600 pounds. But it's interesting, the more that I go around corners, it's like I start turning and nothing happens, and then I turn some more and then it goes. But whenever you do your first turn and nothing happens, and then you turn some more, it can be a little alarming until you get used to it. So if you ever test drive one of these, you've never driven one before, I would just recommend, definitely preparing to corner very gingerly until you figure it out. So it's all just such a learning curve. I've driven, some other muscle cars, but none has had the disconnect that this has in that regard. That's kind of interesting. But, again, everything you can get used to, and it is, basically a 50-year-old vehicle at this point, so we kind of got to cut it some slack still. I definitely do feel like I'm feeling more road vibrations through here than I do with some of the larger muscle vehicles of this time period as well. So I think, the pony car, you definitely get a little less refinement, but obviously you get a even more raw feeling than you get with some of the other stuff from this time. And cruising now at some higher speeds, it's a really nice cruiser, so this one has the 354 rear gearing. Now you could get, I think, a 323 as standard, so this does have a sportier rear gear, and that's part of that is because of the RT package, so you have kind of limited slip differential setup back there for better traction and performance. And that's what, R&T stood for road and track, and so that's, they wanted you to have the good track performance, but still have something that's very streetable. So this is much more streetable than like the 410 gears and the Super B, with the A12 package and stuff like that. But, it's kind of a nice happy medium. I definitely think this is a better cruiser for sure than the Super B6 pack is. Alright, so I've tried doing a couple accelerations. It keeps popping out of second gear. We'll try it again, see if we can get it to go. Here we go. So it flies in first. Second is good. Strong pull. There we go. Woo! And then those extra carbs open up and it does fly. I'm glad we got to work that time. Oh man. Whenever it does work, it's phenomenal. So that's just an easy little fix that Ron is going to be doing over the winter here. But when it holds and sticks in that gear, it flies. That is a lot of fun. So yeah, these would do, this 446 pack does 390 horsepower, 490 pound-feet of torque, according to the old ratings. It's a little less by modern standards here, but still very, very strong performance. 0 to 60 back then, 6.3 seconds, which compared to other stuff back then, this was seriously fast and very impressive. Obviously that was a golden age of performance with the 60s muscle cars that went into the 70s, the early 70s. But yeah, this would do like a 13.7 second quarter mile. So, all very impressive numbers, even by modern standards. And so it shows just how far ahead they were with performance back then. And all the manufacturers here, they were right neck and neck with each other, constantly competing. And that competition is what led to better and better vehicles for everyone else. And man, this thing is sweet. You smell the gasoline, and you just, it's just great. Of course, you have to have the windows down because there's no air conditioning, so you got all the wind in your hair and everything else. Although this isn't quite as airy as, of course, the larger vehicles with their bent windows and more glass and stuff. This is a little more of a cockpit style feeling, but still feels great. And it's just a really great cruiser too, just cruising down the road here. It's a little wider. We're coasting at about 2,500 RPMs here, just under 55 miles an hour, about 52, 53. If you were cruising at 70 and this thing on the highway, it might wear on you for, after a little while, but it does a pretty good job aside from just popping out of gear. That's definitely not ideal. So yeah, but that was not characteristic of these vehicles back then. That's just something that's happened here over time, I suppose, just a little quirk of its own. I really enjoy driving this. It definitely has a more sports car type feeling, which they actually advertised it as kind of like a sports car in their range of muscle vehicles, and I can kind of see that justification now and how much sportier this would be, especially at the time over some of the newer stuff. Another little acceleration here, second gear. Doing partial throttle, trying to be easier here on this manual. There we go. Yeah, this thing is a good performer. I really love how it gets up and goes. And now that I'm getting more and more used to it, I have more confidence, I think, pushing this than I do with the larger, heavier, bulkier muscle cars at the time. This is, you can kind of feel a little more confident in it, once you get used to it. Even mid-range punch, just stomping on it, third gear at 45 miles an hour, it really gets up and moves nicely. Now, you could, of course, get an automatic in these as well if you wanted, so you don't have to have the trickier manual. And if it were me buying one, I would certainly go for an automatic Mopar. They're a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the Roadrunner. That with an automatic is a lot of fun and a lot more of a relaxed experience if you're not experienced with these harder to drive old school manuals. This isn't too bad, and I feel like if you gave me a day or so in this, I would totally be able to get used to it and be a pro again once that jumping out of gear issue was fixed. But yeah, we're coming up to some more corners here. Really enjoy the brakes. They do feel better and better. I really like them. They don't really seem to pull or anything, even though some other disc brakes of this time you still sometimes drifted around a little bit under braking. This seems a lot more confident and poised. But the steering also seems to be getting better and better the more and more that I use it, so that's good. The more that I push it into some little bit tighter corners here, you do have some lean for sure, and compared to modern vehicles that are 3,600 pounds, this still certainly feels heavier to me. So it's not quite as tossable as the newer stuff, but that just comes down to newer suspension geometry, more sophisticated suspension setups, and all those types of things really mask the weight a lot better. So do better tires. But yeah, overall, I absolutely love the 70 Challenger here. I think the new ones are definitely amazing, and that's still what I prefer. But the old one here, you can't beat the attitude. And I mean, if you think the new ones are cool, I mean, this is dripping with attitude. You just feel cool driving it. You look cool driving it because it's an old muscle car, and it just really oozes cool basically. So yeah, not to be repetitive, but this thing is really the epitome of cool. So anyway, huge thanks to Ron for providing me with his very sweet Challenger here to review for you guys today. Let me know your thoughts on the 1970 Challenger RT in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.